Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chasing Rank. We're live once again. It is a Tuesday night and we are here. The international break is almost over and we can't wait for it to be over. Joining me, as always, on our Tuesday nights is Dom and Damo. Fellas, how we going?
Yeah, not too bad, Paulie. Always good to be here. And look, me and Paul even have the same cup of tea. It wasn't even planned. We just hopped in and off we went. And yeah, look, one international breakdown, only a couple more to go. Let's get through them. And Dom, it's good to see you, mate.
Yeah, guys, only 4 more days and we're back. International breaks.
Yeah,
I reckon
you
it's
might
picking
need
up
to do your
Yeah.
mics again, Dom, whilst you're nice and early in the stream as always. We did get you there, but it was a little bit muffled. But yeah, look, I get the international breaks. The games need to be played somewhere, but it's just I hate how they always do it after like 3 games of the season as well. Like you just get into some momentum, we just get some data. There's normally 1 or 2 injuries or some big talking points, and then away we go into a little break. But for someone like me who recognized that there were a few mistakes in my team, it wasn't a bad time to crack the whip and get some moves going. So that's where I'm at with FPL at the moment. We've got a nice little stretch of games heading off. Were there any big talking points you guys wanted to hit on before we get into the nuts and bolts of this video, which you guys could all see from the title?
Nothing too crazy. I was obviously monitoring to see what happened with Isaac, and he got benched obviously for the first international friendly. He came off the bench right at the end. I think that kind of points that he won't be playing against Burnley or starting at least. So probably less of an asset than what we discussed last week when he got the call up, or maybe. Outside of that, obviously, one of the other talking points, not fantasy Premier League related. Yes, Tonali did score the winner. Is Italy played a crazy game against Israel, which I was very invested in. It finished 5-4 and an absolute a shock to the Italian system of mind, which is usually a 1-0 win and very defensively masterminded. So yeah, in terms of international football talking points, that one.
We've got some breaking news as of 25 minutes ago. Fabrizio Romano, Ange Postecoglou's back in the Premier League, boys. Here we go. Now,
sell those Forest assets.
Well, it's not so much sell the Forest assets.
The defenders. The defenders.
Yeah, the defenders. This is like not vindication, but it's like ahead of Arsenal away this week. I am very, very happy to now not have Murillo in my side because
is he taking the team?
What was that?
Is he taking the team this weekend?
Yep.
Who knows?
According to the rumors, yes, he is taking charge this weekend.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Look, regardless of who's taking the team this weekend, they're not going to be playing the Nuno traditional way. But again, Forest this year haven't been playing that way anyway. It's almost like they've accepted that they're not holding on for dear life every single game, and they do have some good footballers in their side. So I think, there's times in a season where you can be stubborn and go, no, off last year's data, we'll back it. They're not playing the same football this year. So I'm of the opinion that if you own any Nottingham Forest defenders, now's the time. So I'm just trying to fix my camera on the fly here. Sell them on the go now. Like I just think the issue is they've got Burnley and Sunderland after Arsenal. So if I wasn't on WILDCARD, I'd probably just bench them this week and then play them for the 2 weeks and then move them on when the fixtures turn, which was my initial plan anyway with Murillo. But I think your Elliot Andersons, I think your Morgan Gibbs-Whites, your Chris Woods, I think, and Doy as well now out in that right wing. But again, you're not buying any of these guys until you see who's locked in Ange's system. So we know he's going to play 4-2-3-1. Are the fullbacks going to invert like the Spurs boys did last year? Does that make Nico Williams a really good buy attackingly, who had some really strong data last year as an attacking fullback with defensive contributions? Maybe he's the fullback to own or the defender to own from Forest. So, look, I don't think tonight's the night to talk about it all. I think in 2 or 3 weeks' time, though, we'll be talking Forest assets when their fixtures turn. So there's plenty of people in the chat, which is brilliant. So welcome along to our good friends here, FPL Hippie. Welcome along, mate. And we've got FPL Onions in the chat as well. Welcome along. Now, we are going to be talking wildcards. There is a point where we're going to get to that. Now, there's something else that I've not prepped the boys on per se, because I like keeping them on their toes too, as well as the audience. So only I have seen this screen. So I'm going to share with you the screen on screen. So don't mind me if my eyes are not sort of on the screen in front of me. I've created a custom data table. Now I'm just trying to just make it so it's nice and viewable for you guys on the screen.
Yep, that's probably good there, mate.
Thank you. So I want to talk defensive contributions first. Obviously, that's the big talk of the season so far. I want to get into some attacking data before we get into the wild card because I have hit the button. We're talking on the stream last week that I was leaning towards a wild card, and then I committed to the wild card as soon as we got off. I don't remember if I did it on or off stream, but anyway, as soon as I got off stream, I locked in my wild card, and I've only made 2 or 3 changes from that team. But I want to talk through some of the justification in my side as well. So kicking it off, let me just go up here. Let's just get rid of the forwards because we're going to talk defenders anyway first. So from a DC perspective, Sepp Vandenberg has got it in all 3 games. Senesi's got it in all 3 games, and Tarkovsky's got it in 3 games. So going into the season, we said that Murillo and Tarkovsky were probably the 2 5.5 million defenders who were going to be locked in for DC out of all the 5.5s. Damo went Tarkovsky, I went Murillo. And that's almost been the difference between us and then the Bruno captaincy last week between our 2 ranks. So Damo went on that side of the fence. I went on the Forest side of the fence. And so be it. It is what it is. I've now made that wrong, But we've spoken about Senesi so much. Vandenberg, I just don't think you can go with a Brentford defender with how many goals they're going to concede. Like, their fixtures aren't horrible for an attacking option. Now, can I get his... Oh, you can get it. There we go. So their fixtures are Chelsea, Fulham, Man United, Man City, West Ham, Liverpool, Crystal Palace, Newcastle, Brighton. The only asset you want from Brentford right now is Dango Otara. You do not want another Brentford asset. And let's just get rid of all that because that is my data table. Let's go back to DC. Sorry about that. I'm not going to click on another player because I didn't realize how much that was going to throw it out. So let's go back to the defenders. So from a DC perspective, lots of people have been at me about Senesi. Look, I like Senesi, but I'm still not convinced Bournemouth are the best defense. So I think, try and beware again. He's a 4.5 million option who will get DC points. Other than that, out of the top 10, Dan Burns stands out, and he's someone who gets DC in harder games. So the one game he didn't get it was the game on against Leeds, where we spoke about that last week. And they just had the ball. So, in games like that, Dan Burn is going to be really good for clean sheet potential and goal threat. He's not amazing goal threat. He's at 0.01. For someone who's so big, he's not a huge goal contributor. So, you're not buying Dan Burn expecting him to be, a huge threat from corners because he actually typically stays back, which is interesting. But I just think the Newcastle defense, they're going to rest on those laurels now. They've lost Isaac as well. They've got a lot of new attackers to bleed in. And I think they're going to just go, let's just be, set at the back and let's just try and hit teams on the break, which I actually think is going to be really interesting. So that's the top 10. Virgil, De Ligt's interesting, but again, you're not going near the Man United defense. Keane, interesting as an Everton asset, but I think he's Keane. I don't have their price on here. That's probably one thing I need to add to this data table. I might do that whilst you guys are talking. I can't remember what Keane. I think Keane's 5 million, isn't he? I don't think he's 4.5.
Correct.
Yeah.
No,
so for an extra 0.5, I'd rather just get Tarkovsky and know that you're going to lock away all the DC. Are there any names as a top 10 that are standing out to you guys there that you might consider as options?
I'd straight off the bat, it's Anderson from Fulham. I rate him very highly. His historical data from last year was fantastic. I mentioned it in the pre-season stream that Fulham's clean sheet data last year, they underperformed on it massively, and it's easier to come back to the relative form guide for clean sheet data than it is to, underperform / overperform your goals data. So with that being said, I just think he's the one that makes the most sense in that top 10 because I think there's just, historical data that proves he's a great asset. And last year's Fulham's, clean sheet data was that good that if they regress towards the mean or improve towards their mean average, they're going to keep a few clean sheets. And there's probably going to be some whole, 8, 9, 10 point hauls with the defensive contribution data.
Yeah, and that's, Dom, you've got Anderson in your side. He's a 4.5 that I was heavily considering at the start of the year as well. Again, as long as he's another one who's attacking threat's not amazing. But again, Fulham are going to be one of those sides that hopefully are going to be looking at getting the odd clean sheet, especially at home, and you want to play those home fixtures. That's what I'm noticing as well. Away fixtures for teams like Everton, Tarkovsky could be really, really good for those DCs as well, because Everton probably aren't going to be on the front foot as much. From a defensive contributions perspective, though, what are you guys noticing are the trends? Like, I've extended it out to 20 players, and that's obviously players who have got to DC at some capacity. Like, when you're looking at those guys that have got 6s and 4s, what do we notice? Is there a pattern there from the defenders? We know it's particularly going to be centre backs. Well, I'm only got this on defenders though, so we're not looking at midfielders. I could add the midfielders to it as well, and then maybe you'll see the spread. Like, Bruno's hit it twice, and what did he get in the first game? 9 against Arsenal as well, I think 9 or 10 against Arsenal.
Yeah, just shy. Yeah.
Caicedo's hit it twice, but
don't think Bruno's hit it twice.
Yeah, he has. He's got 4 points. He hit it when he missed a penalty against Fulham. That's why he didn't get 0.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, all good.
Yeah, so he's got it, and then he got it against Burnley. So
yeah, he went really close against Arsenal.
Yeah, so Bruno, that's why we picked Bruno initially in our sides for those reasons. But that is, that's what I'm noticing is you don't want to be in the bottom teams, because your clean sheet odds are just completely gone. I'm noticing it's those middling defenses that have good home fixtures or good away fixtures that are picking up these DC points. Like, Senesi cops 4 against Liverpool, but he still had 15. I think he's gone 15, 15, 14. Like, he's been well overs. Oh, we've lost Damo. His internet's struggling. So don't mind if Damo drops in and out as well, guys. But that's what I'm noticing from a DC perspective. Now, if we look from an XG perspective, so this is all with a wild card in mind. Now, Damo is trying to get back in the stream, and I'm trying to re-add him, and he's back.
I understand.
Now things get a little bit different. All right, we've just moved on, Damo, from DC to XG. Now, Calafiori from 3 games has a 1.13 expected goals. He has been absolutely bombing on this year as the left back, but what I don't like are his minutes. So he's had 3 starts, but he's only had 226 minutes amongst that. So you're looking at someone like Van de Ven, who's played 270. Lacroix's played 270. So Calafiori, especially in those first couple games, was getting subbed off. And now they've just got Hincapié. They've got Miles Lewis-Skelly and Calafiori, and he's somebody who has big injury issues. What are your thoughts on Calafiori, as I just want to add one thing to my data table?
I don't think he's an asset. I think there's too much rotation risk there at Arsenal. Yes, they're playing this sort of 7 centre back, very defensively minded football at the moment, and it's going to lead to clean sheets. Also, think that's very inflated. Wasn't one of his chances super high XG chance that he converted as well off the top of my head, like a 0.8 or a 0.9, like it was on the goal line?
Yeah, potentially.
I think so. So I think it's an inflated number as well.
Who did he score against? Did he score against Man United?
It was week 1. It was game week 1 because he went ballistic.
Man United.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is I think it's inflated data, and I think it is a player that is going to be the most rotated, along with Timber, Skelly, in that Arsenal defense. Obviously, with the injury to Saliba at the moment, it might make his minutes slightly more secure, and he could even move in the
Nah.
I don't
I'll say that Mascara.
Yeah, I just think
left-footed as well.
Am I not wrong on deadline day to sign Hincapié as well?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I know that they're probably bringing him in for rotation. As someone that plays a heap of football manager, he grows into a world-class centre-back, and he's a pretty good centre-back in real life as well. He's going to take minutes, and he can play left-back. He can play naturally at left-back as well. So I think Calafiore is one to stay away from, and I would rather go, same with Timber, who's second on that list, I'd rather go for nailed-on centre-backs from these mid-table sides that when they keep a clean sheet are going to get bulk points, but their floor is going to be 3 or 4 points because they're just so good at their DC contributions.
Yeah, there's one name that stands out to me as part of the top 10 for XG, and it's De Ligt. If Man United at some point figure this out, at 5 million, he's hit DC 2 out of 3 games, and he's got good enough goal threat playing in that 3-back system under Amarin. He's probably the defender of choice. We've seen the fullbacks get rotated. Shaw's not going to play all the minutes. Lenny Yoro is starting to get there, and he's obviously right behind on this list as well. Timber is nailed, yes, at right back whilst Ben White's injured. But by the time Arsenal's fixtures turn, you're not going to know that. And I'd rather pay the extra 0.4 and get Gabriel, if I'm honest. So that's the Timber issue for me. There's going to be rotation there. Lacroix going into a good fixture. If you need a 5 million defender this week, Lacroix is the guy. I'm kicking myself because there was 2 5 million defenders that I was really looking at buying, and I didn't do it in the end. And I spent the money elsewhere, and it was Lacroix and Romero, and they both have started like houses on fire at the moment as well. So I got that one wrong, but I was looking in the right areas. No one else from an XG really stands out, but what we're looking more from our defenders is XA. Now, Damo, talk us through number one on this XA list because he's in my wildcard team. Talk to me about Daniel Munoz. I know you love him so much.
Look, if you watched any of Raptors FPL videos, I highly recommend. He goes on about Munoz. He is just someone that not even owning him in FPL, he's just so good to watch just live in a game. Goal rush, Palace is on. You know it's going to be good to watch Munoz because he's up the field. He's so attacking. He's basically a winger. He takes the game by the scruff of the neck. He's whipping balls in. He's trying to get on the end of set pieces, and he's trying to get on the end of edge of the area, pop shots. He's great to watch. He's Pedro Porro, but on a different level. In terms of a fantasy asset, he is definitely the most underrated fantasy asset of the last few seasons. And I honestly think that he will be the highest scoring fantasy player for defenders this year. He is that heavily involved in that Palace attack, that assistant goals are going to come. If Saar could finish his 0.8 header, which was just beyond him, so he had to lean back, that's another assist because it was very high. And he is massive in their goal involvement, as Paul highlights it too. And especially with Saar being out, for Mateta to get more chances and goals, Munoz is the one that is probably going to be the most creative outlet in the team. So yeah, I think he's second to none, the best 5.5 he can get. And he is someone that, look, defensive contributions, he can hit it too. Look, Onions, I know, but his ownership doesn't reflect it. It really doesn't. I expect him to be 60% owned, 55% owned. And people just underrate him so much.
Yeah, and that's it. At 5.5, I think he gives you everything. He's had DC points once as well. He's got 19 points on the season from a team that have kept 2 clean sheets, but they haven't they've had some really tough fixtures. And if you were like me and you had double Palace, it was for the long term. And I had Richards and Saar, and I was happy enough with that rotation. Again, I would have much rather Lacroix and Saar, but I think Palace now going into Sunderland and West Ham, I think it is over the next 2. I think you want pieces of Crystal Palace, and Daniel Munoz there is on an island for that XA at 0.8. It's interesting that Anderson from Fulham's at 0.67, which I think is quite interesting from centre back. So I don't know where that's coming from. He must be playing balls in behind potentially, and
might have been a header, header back into it.
Oh, maybe a header back across, but 0.67 for him is quite high. I wouldn't expect him to keep that. But granted, him and Munoz have had the same amount of key passes. But you got Munoz here with
does get on the ball.
2 big chances. Yeah, but Munoz has 2 big chances created. And I think that's the kind of thing you're looking for. The only other player in this list that has that is Cucurella at 2. Again, some names to consider, like Diego Dallo. I was highlighting 25% goal involvement for Munoz. Is 25% goal involvement for Dallo. But Man United they scored 3 against Burnley, didn't they?
Yeah, one was an own goal. I think they've only scored.
One was an own goal. He has got 1 assist. 1 was a penalty, and then they scored. It was
the cutback to the Mbeumo top in the side of the 6-yard box, and if he left it, it would have been Bruno, which would have been fantastic. But anyhow,
yeah. So Dallo again. My issue with Dallo right now is minutes, which is interesting. Now we've got an interesting comment here from Superposition. Lacroix will match the Munoz points. Lacroix will get the DC points. I guess the argument is, does Lacroix get the DC points that much more than Munoz gets attacking returns? That's what you got to weigh up. I think Munoz, Damo's going to go Munoz 100%. I'm going to say that Munoz, with a combination of DC and attacking potential, will outscore Lacroix with the combination of both, personally.
And it won't be massive. And almost the case to double up on both of them because they both seem like a great asset. But there's probably going to be a point later in the year where you're going to want Mateta and Saar plus a defender from Palace.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if you can go Munoz or Lacroix with Sarr and Mateta and lock away those assets is fantastic. The only other option I want to talk about is Livramento. Now, Newcastle have only scored 2 goals. Am I right? They drew 0-0 with Leeds. They drew 0-0 with Aston Villa. And they lost 3-2 to Liverpool. So, and Livramento had 1 of those assists. So, yes, 50% of those goal involvements is Livramento, but it's because Newcastle have only scored 2 goals. The interesting dilemma that I want to put to you guys before we move on to some attacking data, if you were picking between Livramento and Dan Burn, who are you going with, Dom?
Livramento.
Damo?
I need to look at their fixtures because I think and I believe they have easier
same
fixtures
team.
moving forward. No. The reason why
team.
is if you're going for harder fixtures during the harder fixture run, you go for Burn because he's going to get more DC. But they've got Wolves, Bournemouth, Arsenal, Forest. I would say against Wolves, there's going to be a lot more attacking potential, not as much DC because they're not going to be as attacking. Or maybe Bournemouth.
Wolves, Bournemouth, Arsenal, Forest, Brighton.
It's kind of close. I think Burn just.
My issue is Lewis Hall's back fit. Kieran Trippier is back in the squad.
I think it's Burn.
Livramento actually play every minute.
Back, it's goal threat from corners, and it's DC. I'm looking at that Arsenal game and say, for instance, look, it might be a free hit week for most people in 6. Maybe not for you now, Paul, that your wild card. That might be a week where the rest of your bench bar Burn looks really good for a bench boost, for instance, because there's some really good fixtures. I'd rather bench boost with like Burn, who's going to get DC points in that game, than Livramento, who's going to be very heavily, does he keep a clean sheet or does he get an attacking return? Probably neither against Arsenal. Those are the sort of things. I think it's that close. That's how nitty gritty you have to get to it. Hence why I want to look at the fixture run.
If you're like me on a wild card, you're taking the 90-minute man that's
I think you have to take Burn over it. It's very close though.
Yeah. I just think with Hall, Trippier, Livramento, there's just too many combinations of the fullbacks, playing that way. And like Burn potentially is the left back in that. I think Burn goes to left centre back, Hall goes to left back, Livramento does play right back, but I think Tino Livramento will come off for Kieran Trippier at times. So that's where I'm at with the defenders. Let's move on to what we want to talk about. Midfielders. Thank you, Damo. As I'm loading this up, make sure you hit the like button on the stream at the moment. I don't think we've got any likes on the stream, so make sure.
Up to 4. You have to refresh it a lot. 20 viewers in the stream. This might be the biggest record for most people watching at the same time. So
I have been keeping an eye on that.
On the back as well.
So if you are here and you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing as well. It does help us out massively in building our community a lot bigger. So we're at 102 subscribers. I probably should have started with that because that is a big milestone for us. We've gone over the 100 subscriber mark today, which is fantastic. We have been posting very frequently and trying to get that as high as we can. So let's keep pushing together. Midfielders, XG. This is what we all want to talk about. If we're looking at XG from the midfielders now, this is what hurts my soul. Ismail Assar has 2 XG. Highest XG across all midfielders. I started with him in my game week 1 team. I almost feel a bit vindicated about starting with him. 2 goals in 2 very different games as I see the chat. We're not going to be doing that. Ismail Assar, though, frustratingly gets the hamstring injury and is out injured. Then the next best for XG is Bruno. 2 of them in my team. And I'm still here complaining about my team. So I've had the 2 highest XG midfielders. Bruno hasn't scored those. So that's the frustrating one, which is really, really annoying. But again, I guess I said this last year with Bruno. The data, and then the output, you're just like, ugh. I mean, Bruno has scored a goal. Obviously, he scored the penalty. But, if he scores the other penalty, so the fact that he's had 2.7 chances, that's 1.4 of his 1.8. You got to keep that in mind. But that's why we pick him, which is about the pen share. And then it's Semenyo. But what I like with Semenyo is he's had 10 shots, which is really promising as well. And we know he's going to be a high-volume shooter. Enzo Fernandez, XG, again's high because he's had that penalty. But it's interesting that he's about 1 XG without the penalty. And we spoke heavily about him last week. And, Dom, I want to get your thoughts on him in a second because Chelsea, I said he was going to take the penalty, and he bloody did, and no one
Yeah.
listened to me. And, Palmer should be back, so it doesn't matter long term, but I'm intrigued to see where he plays long term. Anthony from Burnley, we're not considering. And Dye only had the one game where he didn't play the 90 minutes, but all four of the front four of Everton are going to be good, I think, as cheaper options. And then you look at someone like an Anthony Gordon at 10 shots. I don't want to bring it up because it's a little bit of a sore spot for Dom, but in 2 games, he hasn't even played 2 games because he got sent off about halfway through the other one.
1.5 games.
And he's had 10 shots. So, if he was to stay in that role, then, pretty fine. Brennan Johnson, minutes are low, but the XG is high because he's a type of back post finisher. And then Dango Ouattara is someone I'll talk about a little bit later, who at 0.88 XG. Now, his goal was very high XG because he kicked it into the keeper and then practically had an open goal. But again, he's only played the 2 games and had 3 shots, 3 on target, and all 3 in the box. So he's someone I really want to talk about. Looking at that from an XG perspective, guys, any thoughts on that? I can sort it by non-pen XG. So that knocks knock him out of the top 20? I think it does. So there's the difference. So if you want to look at non-pen XG, then it moves a few things around a little bit. So Enzo goes to that 1.03 instead of 1.82. So it knocks off 0.8 of his XG. Any surprising thoughts there from our midfielders before we go to the forwards?
I think if you look, you have to filter it with pens because pens is a big thing, obviously, in fantasy points. Personally, I know some people look for without it.
I agree.
I really want to highlight, and I'm sorry, Dom, to do this, is that if Gordon comes back in, and I don't expect him to play up front, they've made signings here, but he'll go back to his natural, winger role. And we've seen what he did last year. There was a massive influx of people bringing him in between game weeks like 22 to 25, 26 last season. We know what he's capable of. So if you're planning for the future, you're on wildcard, potentially having him come in and being on the bench and then attacking some of these fixtures that are coming up, especially now that Ange is going to be at Forest and that's one of the future fixtures, right?
Yep.
You probably want to have a Newcastle attacking option, but you probably don't want to go to I can't remember what the other striker's called, Wisser and the guy from the Bundesliga.
Altamada.
That's the one. I didn't want to butcher that name at all because for those that know me, I would butcher that 100% of the time. But yeah, look, I think you can't go for either, but you probably would be very happy to have Gordon come in and play in those very good Newcastle fixtures. And I think if you're looking for future prediction of points, XG is great to look at. But for me, it's like shots and shots in the box. And if you look at Gordon there, it's 10 shots, 7 in the box. So I think it is a big predictor for future points. And some of
that getting into the right areas.
My watch list.
Yeah, because you're getting into the right areas. That's what shots in the box show. So Semenyo, that's why everyone is massive on Semenyo because he's at 1.88 XG. He's scored 2 goals, albeit both against Liverpool, who, he hits the bar from 6 yards out against Wolves. And I think he had another chance against Tottenham. He's played 270 minutes across 3 games, had 10 shots. The thing with Semenyo is his conversion's quite low. So he's a high volume shooter with low conversion. You just got to wear that. He's going to miss chances. He's not a clinical finisher, but he's someone who, with the right amount of volume, will get those opportunities. That's why I was bullish on Semenyo when I brought him in, because I'm very keen on that. Brooks is interesting. Like Raptor, as you said, Damo, before, Raptor speaks so much about Brooks. Again, the only issue I've got with Brooks is his minutes. He's not a 90-minute man, but he does take some set pieces. You can see he's had 6 key passes and created 4 big chances, and he's only averaging like 65 minutes a game. So if at some world he's locked in for Bournemouth, then at 5 mil, he could be a great enabler. I'm just not going there because of the minutes. But then you've got Gordon again; he'll be fine, and Buemo probably getting a better market share of their shots. He seems to be the outlet on the right-hand side. And look, 8.1 million is probably a bit steep. Like, you can't have him and Bruno and Gyökeres and Haaland. Like, it's just too much, I think, without, like, skimping completely on the defense. So he probably just misses out on structure. But I think Man United will click at some point, because then look at here. For shots in the box, you've then got Cunha at 5, Bruno at 4 now, albeit 2 of Bruno's shots in the boxes have been penalties. So, take that with a pinch of salt. So that's the attacking element of the midfielders. Quickly from an XA, obviously Grealish is quite high. 5 key passes, 2 big chances, 4 assists. Again, there's probably going to be some regression there. As much as I love Jack Grealish, you can't expect him to be walking out of every game with 2 assists. So that will stop. I think Dewsbury Hall for 1.7 million less is the play. I think better minutes. He's not going to have the goals, and the big chances are there. The key passes are there. He's on set pieces. He's in the 10. He's playing 90 minutes. Dewsbury Hall is in the wild card for me at this point. And then Dom Estevao, interestingly enough, from an XA. Now, is that more from his involvement against West Ham, or what are your thoughts there?
Well, he got the assist against West Ham. That would have been quite high XA because it's just a ball across the box. And then Fulham, I don't remember the Fulham game.
Didn't really need to create much. Scored the header from a corner, and that was that.
Yeah, no, I think that's mostly from the West Ham game where we kind of were all
because his numbers are low. 1 assist, 1 big chance, 2 key passes. Again, minutes are a problem though.
Minutes are a problem. He's only 18.
Yeah, I think you're not going there, but I think he is eventually going to be a solid option. Now, where's this question here from Matt? Whilst we're on the mids, thoughts on Xavi Simons. Now, Thomas Frank as a 10, it's looking like they're not going to play that 3-5-2 shape a whole lot like they did against PSG. At 7 million, look, I'd want to see it first. If you're in my position and you're wildcarding this week, I'm probably not going there. I just want to see what the mix looks like because Pap Sarr's not long-term going to be the 10. I think anyone that's bought Pap Sarr, I think you've pulled the trigger a bit early there. Like, it was nice to have a 5 million asset as the Spurs number 10, but I don't think that's where you want to go. Thoughts on Xavi Simons, boys? Would you just want to wait 2 or 3 weeks and reevaluate?
Yeah, I think he'll be. Yeah, I could definitely see him on the team. I think I mentioned this on the last.
I'm going to play slight devil's advocate, just slight. I look, and I know that you rate him very highly, Paul, because you've used him in FM and you quite like the guy, and I think he's absolutely sensational. This is a great signing for Spurs. He's got to be on most, if not all, set pieces because his delivery is outrageous. I don't see a world where he doesn't start for Spurs. I know that we would generally like to see it, especially being a new signing. If you're on a wild card this week and 14 of your 15 picks are nailed on guys that are playing 100% of the time, right? I don't mind this one as a punt. I think this is a better punt than taking Isak on your wild card at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
but you've got to have players that are playing everywhere else if it becomes a problem.
7 mil is an awkward price range for me personally. And I'm going to explain why 7 mil for me is an awkward price range because the way I've structured up on my wild card, I could very easily get him in 2 moves because I've got ways to do it. And we might explore that tonight because I can take that risk because there is one mid in my team who's not far from Xavi Simons, who I'm actually keen on not moving away from, but if I took 1 million out of my defense and put it straight on top of a 6 million midfielder, would I feel more comfortable with Xavi Simons than Dango Utara? Probably would. But Dango gives you the out ball for Brentford and DC in most games, which is why Dango sits in my team and it gives you an extra 5.5 million defender. So that might be an interesting poll for me to run. Would you take the 5.5 defender and Dango or a 4.5 Senesi, quote unquote, and Xavi Simons? I think that would actually be quite close. So strikers, Damo, I'm going to get you to talk us through our strikers whilst I set the poll up.
Yeah, well, you set the poll up, mate. Just followed by XG. As you can see, the man, the myth, the legend that is on top of the screen is none other than Haaland, and he is scaring every non-Haaland owner, and I'm very envious of Dom. On the previous screen, you saw Salah was languishing in the bottom half of that table. He has not been that XG, XA monster that we come to know from Salah, but he is contributing and doing, he's getting the points, which is always good. Haaland's going to have a moment, and it could be any game week. It could be this game week against United, where he's just going to go and get 4 or 5 in a game. And this is the thing. City are underperforming, and he's still getting 3.88 XG. Imagine when City flick the switch and they go on that 18 to 20 game run where they win every game and Haaland doesn't get injured and he moves forward. I think if you're a Haaland owner, it's great. And I think most people wildcarding this week are transitioning away from Salah to Haaland. And that speaks about how good he is going in, how good his data looks, that people are getting rid of Salah before Burnley away to bring Haaland in before Man United at home. And to answer Onion's question, if I had both, I'd probably lean. Geez, I'm a Liverpool fan, so it'd be hard to watch Burnley away without
City
Salah.
at home for you. Sorry, United at home.
I think
for
I lean
City, though.
Haaland slightly.
It's
It
tough.
pains me to say that.
I haven't even considered about wildcarding with both of them, to be honest.
There's a
Not
lot,
at all.
lot around. A lot of
I don't
people
think
There
you
are a
should
lot
either.
around, but I think it's just you're committing too much of your budget and it kills the rest of your team. Look,
100%.
I don't think there's much to talk about with the other strikers. Like João Pedro's been brilliant. I know we had a comment about Ollie Watkins. Look, I'm off Ollie Watkins. That was more about catching the price fall, like missing the price fall. So I got off of him at 8.9. Is he still at 8.9 or is he at 8.8?
I do
He's still
not
at
know.
8.9. He's
Yeah.
still at
Yeah,
8.9.
yeah.
Do you mind if I talk about this one slightly, Paul? Only because
Go.
I mentioned this in my video that went live a couple of hours ago on the channel.
Yeah.
I did a bit of a piece on Watkins in that video, and I know the question was again from Matt. I think if I go back up in the stream, I'm already spoken about before. It's on holding Watkins because he's popped his wild card. I think if you're on wild card, even though the fixtures are really good, you're more than welcome to probably go the other way. I, as someone that plays the game with potential future fixtures and future points in mind, and their fixtures coming up are really, really, really good up until game week 8. And we know what Watkins is capable of previous years. So if you're on your wild card and you want to hold him, I think it's a fine move. If you want to get rid of him, it's fine. For someone like myself that's not wild carding, you have him in your team, I think he's an absolute no-brainer to hold for the next 4 weeks and ride those great fixtures. Sunderland, I reckon Burnley's another one.
Burnley's in 7, which is when people are looking to move him to Gyökeres.
Yeah, correct.
Gyökeres has West Ham in 7.
Yeah, and I think it's a no-brainer with the fixtures that are coming, and plus they got Sancho and Harvey Elliott in now, which is going to be help with the creativity. I think there's goals coming for Villa, and if there's goals coming for Villa, they're coming for one man and one man only, and that's Ollie Watkins.
Yep.
If you're on wildcard, are you going hold Watkins or move him to Gyökeres when you can, and then not have to worry about making that transfer later down the line?
I'm a bit different than how I play FPL, and I would hold Watkins with the fixtures because I'm a big fixtures player. But I would say that 90% of the world would probably just go straight to Gyökeres.
Which is what my current wildcard is having. So let's move over to that because I want to talk through my wildcard draft and then we'll get into questions because obviously the title of this video is about wildcard and we're 37 minutes in. Hopefully you got something out of the data dive because I was going to do a separate video about the data this week. I thought, we'll just put it all in the live stream because the data is what informs the wildcard. That makes sense. So that's what I was hoping to kind of get to. So without hopefully boring you guys too much about the data is what's informing my wildcard. So at this point, I am rolling with a very, very heavy defense. Now, this is where it gets interesting because I could go Gyökeres down back to Watkins because that doesn't hurt me at all to do that. Now, Gyökeres has Nottingham Forest, Man City, Newcastle. Gross. Not great. But then you pick up West Ham, Fulham, Crystal Palace, Burnley, Sunderland, Tottenham. The reason Gyökeres sits in there is to save the transfer later down the line where I don't really want to have to remove Ollie Watkins at that point. So the reason I've got Harvey Elliott sitting in my team is to hopefully not cover Watkins, but if Watkins is going to pop off, it should hopefully be through the use of Harvey Elliott playing in the 10. Yep. So in the Sunderland, Fulham and Burnley games, I'm hoping to play Harvey Elliott in those fixtures to then have that set in stone. Now, my dilemma is Dango Utara sitting on the bench. Now, what I was alluding to was a Pedro Porro, who it's probably Pedro Porro because Tarkowski and Munoz don't leave my team, and Dan Burn at 5 million is not ever going to become a 4 million. So if I wanted to create a 3 million in this team, I think Gabriel just needs to be in the team at this point as well. Like, yes, the next couple aren't great. I don't expect him to get DC, but then you want him from 7. You want him for West Ham, Fulham, Crystal Palace, Burnley, Sunderland, Tottenham. And Arsenal are good enough to keep clean sheets, and I can live with, that long term. So Pedro Porro is the one defender here where I look at him and I go, the fixtures are very, very good. I do want to keep him, but Tarkowski is strong. We want Tarkowski for DC. We want Munoz for attacking potential, and he's locked in for that. if I was to move Dango to Xavi Simmons, it would be through Pedro Porro to a Senesi or an Anderson. What are our thoughts around the structure of that side? Now, obviously, it's very defense move there as well. It's very much a 4-3-3 every week. You've got Dewsbury Hall, Dango, and Elliott who rotate through that third midfielder slot. And if you've got two defenders playing away fixtures, you could go 3-4-3. Damo, I see you look nice and puzzled there. What are you thinking?
It's Porro on the bench is hurting me a little, but I understand why. I think the structure's not bad. I think if any game week, which probably not with that front three. I was thinking about 5 at the back because you got 5.
You'd have to be 5-2-3.
Can you do that in an FPL? I would imagine you can.
I think so.
No.
Yep.
Yes, you can.
Oh, you can.
I think Dewsbury Hall at home is the only reason why I play.
No, Paul.
Because
Porro
I
against
think
West Ham.
I think if you're gonna be benching Porro against West Ham away and him being so aggressive, you may as well save the money in the defender position by going to a 4.5 mil. Hey, if you want that Spurs cover for the next 4 weeks, Van de Ven's an option as well, right? And then you can go to Dango to your
Xavi Simmons.
Dango up to what we were discussing before. I forgot who you wanted to bring in for Dango.
It'll be Xavi Simmons. It's 7
Xavi Simmons. The punt. I think that if you're going to go that way, actually, I would probably go Senesi. So then you have 1 Spurs asset, maybe not 2, just in case you want to get back to having 3 Spurs assets.
Wait, what do you mean 1 Spurs asset?
Because you go Pedro Porro to
to Van de Ven. Yeah, I get you.
Pedro
So
Porro
I'd have
to,
2 Spurs.
Yeah,
I'd
but
have
if
2
you wanted to
Spurs.
only have 1, you go to Senesi.
Yeah, or Anderson.
Yeah.
There's some serious considerations, and it's interesting because I look at this side. It has Haaland, it has João Pedro, and it has Gyökeres. It's got 2 locked-in midfielders who are creating and getting involved from high XG chances with Semenyo and Bruno. You've then got Dan Burn, who is one of the better DC defenders at 5 mil. Now, the reason it's not Lacroix is because I don't want to double up on the Palace defense either. And I just think the Newcastle fixtures are brilliant. And I think for Bournemouth away and Arsenal at home, he's going to be brilliant for DC. I think you play him in those games anyway. Tarkowski, similar story. Liverpool away, you probably don't want to play him because Liverpool could score. I think Everton at home aren't just going to sit there and let Liverpool just have wave and wave of attack. But again, he's playable in pretty much every fixture, as is Munoz, as is Gabriel. So I like that. Matt V goes, I 100% think the Xavi Simmons and Senesi option is better for the structure. I probably agree. I think I like the thought of Dango because he actually does pick up quite a bit of DC. So he had 7 against Sunderland in a game where they were on top, which makes sense because they're attacking. But he had 15 against Aston Villa. And in the harder games, he would do that. But when I project my team out, so let me set my team up. If I project my team over on Fantasy Football Hub and I share this tab, Hub are huge on Dango Ouattara. They are 5-point baseline for him, which is crazy because that means he's either getting a goal, assist, or DC every single week. And the only week I think I actually played him, I was playing him here too because I was benching Munoz against Liverpool. But, Dango versus Man United at home or Munoz against Liverpool at home, I don't know which way I lean on that. Hub does definitely have me playing a lot. You're probably benching Dewsbury Hall over a Munoz or a Burn, but Hub do prefer the 3 at the back, which is interesting. But I do want to forecast this. So if we then move Dango and Pedro Porro, who with those 2 away fixtures is getting a lot less love in the... How do you spell his name? Oh, he's Xavi. All right. Yep. So Hub haven't forecasted Xavi Simmons to have 90 minutes yet, which is interesting because it's not like he hasn't been playing. Now, Senesi is at 4.6. So I wouldn't be able to go Senesi. So it'd have to be Anderson. Does that change anything, Damo, if it's not Senesi?
Not really, because I really highly rate Anderson, and I think he's very solid for baseline. I think the one thing with Dango, and it is a positive for Dango, is when you think of the bench boost, and like the bench boost chip is not the be all and end all, guys. And like if you already bench boost, great. And if you haven't bench boost, don't overthink it too much. He's the sort of guy you want on your bench boost. It's like Diouf at West Ham. In any random game, they're going to get a goal and assist, and Dango is going to get his defensive contributions, right? And he's just going to give you a better floor for when you do bench boost, because they're going to get probably 3 or 4 points instead of just 2 or 1. So I think that's a positive for Dango if you want to go down that route. You can understand why the algorithm really likes it too. The fact he's got DC, assist, and goal threat, and he could get all 3 in one game is huge for the algorithm, and that's why it gets predicted so high. And he's going to be nailed for 90. And as you said, Paul, guys that are 90 minutes nailed are really important in FPL, as you know from last week.
Yeah, and that's, is Xavi Simons going to play 90? That's probably the other thing. They've got Champions League football. Brentford are playing one game a week. He's probably not a 90-minute man, and I've learnt my lesson there. Yes, I think West Ham aren't going to be the easy beats we've seen for the first 2 weeks. I think we saw a bit of Spurs regression to the mean, and we saw a bit of West Ham regression to the mean last week. That's the reason why Pedro Porro sits on my bench for this game week. That doesn't mean he's not a fantastic asset, but again, you're playing the long-term game with a wild card this early, and there's enough good home fixtures here for Pedro Porro. So in the next, 6-7 game weeks, he gets Wolves at home, Villa at home, Chelsea and Man United all at home. They're not all fantastic some clean sheet games, but you're going to play them. You're going to play him against Leeds away. You're probably going to bench him for West Ham, Brighton, and Everton away, but you're going to play him across the rest. So I'm happy enough with that.
Hub page, Paul, by the way.
Oh, far out. Sorry.
No,
Share this tab. So when I was looking at our fixtures, that's where you were sitting with a Pedro Porro. So I think the West Ham one's hurt, but I think I'm backing Everton to keep a clean sheet against Aston Villa, which I can see that happening, or I can only see them conceding 1. And then Brighton, again, that's a bit of a random game. I can live without that for Brighton. But then Wolves, Leeds, Villa, Everton, Chelsea, Man United, he plays all those. So I think I'm going to keep the team as is. There's a good comment here from Superposition about no, Liverpool feels a bit dodge. It's not ideal, but the way that Liverpool are playing, I can bring up the run. So if I go stats.
Good point, actually.
But who do you who do you bring in? It's Burnley, which is you want Burnley this week, but whatever. Then it's Everton, Palace, Chelsea, Man United, Brentford, Villa, City, Forest. I don't think you really need Liverpool until game week 13. Personally.
What about Everton at home? There's going to be goals.
Nah.
What do you think? Everton lock it down?
I think Everton lock it down.
I think
never high-scoring games.
Generally, the Merseyside derby is not as high-scoring, and then you get the occasion one that pops off and is 3-3. So I think that's got a 1-1, 1-0, 2-1 written all over it as a ceiling. So, yeah. Look, no Liverpool is dodge, but I agree to the extent that it's capable to live without it. As much as I think Gakpo's great for probably the next 2 weeks, if you're wild carding, you're going to have to immediately move him out when he gets dropped. And I will tell you right now, and Paul will agree with me, we will at some stage be Salah on the right, Wirtz in the 10, Ekatike on the left, and Isak up top, or Ekatike up top and Isak on the left. Be one of those, right? And Gakpo, as good as he is, and as much as I love him, will be coming off the bench more times than not in our mainstream starting 11. So you can't really go with him. You don't want to really go with Ekatike with Isak being there because he's probably the likely sub, so he's not going to play 90. And you don't want to go to Isak in this game week because he ain't going to start. So
Chiesa was coming on anyway, Damo too. So Ekatike wasn't playing 90 pre-Isak.
I think that if you want to go with a Liverpool asset, I think it's up front and it's Gyökeres down to Ekatike is probably the best one to do because the most likely source of the goals for the next 2 fixtures. But yet again, I would almost rather you go without Liverpool and get them back in game week 13. Save your transfer, get to your 5 free transfers, bring him in, get Salah in for a couple, and then move him back out again when you get the other 5 free transfers for African Cup of Nations in game week 15 or 16, whichever one of the two it is.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think you can do it. I just think there's too many question marks, and like this, it's almost the pep roulette. Like we need to know who's going to play, what the system looks like. Is everyone fit and firing? Isaac for now is not going to start. So yes, you get the 2 games, but then you're dealing with that problem in 2 weeks' time anyway. I'd rather just go as long as it's not Salah going crazy. I can live with any of the other Liverpool assets going off because I'll back the majority of my assets to go off just as much. So I'm very much of that camp. That's how I'm going to be playing my wild card. I've very heavily committed to a very, very strong back 5. That's just, I'm seeing the value in these 5 to 5.5 and 6 million options. When I compare them to Dewsbury Hall, if I can get similar output from Dewsbury Hall, Munoz, Tarkovsky, they're returning at a rate similar to the premium assets at the moment. You've got Watkins blanking. We've got Chris Wood blanking. We've got Haaland and Salah have had blanks as well. So, these other premium-ish options at a much cheaper rate with DC and attacking potential, they are contributing and clean sheets. They're returning as much. So that's my justification on my wildcard.
My question to you, Paul, I've got one for you.
Yep.
Do you need an Arsenal attacker at the moment?
Haven't
I've got one.
proved any reason as to why you'd need one.
The only other option there is
game.
Mateta, but I'm trying to not bank. Like, I don't know. I don't know what I'd do with that money as well. That's the other option. Like, Dango could go up.
Probably Dango up, right?
Yeah, so Gyökeres to Mateta banks you 1.5. So I'm only getting up to a 7.5 million asset. So who are you buying?
Simmons, I guess. But
it's a good question.
That's why I'm doing this. Because I'm saving. It's about saving the transfer long term. I want Gyökeres from 7. So I might as well have the 90-minute penalty taking option from Arsenal up front now, albeit against Forest, who are without Nuno this week, cop it against Man City, Newcastle, so be it, and then I'm away. And I'm a move ahead of everyone 3 weeks early. I
like it.
Where the thinking is. I like the thought process of Arsenal aren't clicking offensively, but with no Saka, and he has to be up front. There's no Havertz. Martinelli can't get a sniff. So yeah, I just think Gyökeres.
He's nailed. I think he's the most nailed. I really like Mateta. I'm obviously very bullish on Mateta. I brought him in last week and he returned, and he's going to be my long-term hold. I would wonder if maybe, I know that we're talking about 5 free transfers. Would you ever consider booking in like a couple-week punt and then moving to something of this structure?
My issue is then I need to keep the money. I have to keep the money there then. Because if it's in 3 weeks and I've got 1 free transfer, then it defeats the purpose.
3 weeks, 1 free transfer.
I've got 1 free transfer now.
Pardon?
Yeah, so then I need to use 2 moves to get the Gyökeres anyway.
Yeah, so you would... What I'm saying is, do you want to maybe chase the upside of a Gakpo for a 2-week punt, so Saka and Gakpo, and then go to this in game week 7 or game week 8?
Not particularly. I think Arsenal are going to score goals at home against Forest. I don't think Forest are going to be the defensive team that they were. So if I'm only really annoyed at the City fixture, that's going to be a 0-0, 1-0. Like, I'm just writing that in now. And I've got the 2 strikers in that game. Whoever wins that, I'm going to have the goal scorer. Either Haaland scoring or Gyökeres scoring in that game. So if I've got the goal scorer, no Saliba. If I've got the goal scorer in that game, so be it. I think Arsenal are going to score potentially against Newcastle, and if not, so be it. Watkins is... I mean, look, the other option is I just stay on Watkins. And it's 1 move, hopefully, with no price rises. But that I don't know.
Next question would be Gyökeres or Dango, or would you take Mateta and Eze? Because Eze would be nailed, obviously, on that left-hand side.
No,
fast.
Not yet.
Not yet? Yeah.
I want to see it first. If you're on a wild card, I want to see it. And then, I don't know. I feel like Arteta's the kind of person that just makes weird moves. And, like, Eze will always just come off, for Martinelli or for whoever. Like, he just does it. He always was pulling people off, and it's just frustrating. And he makes the same subs all the time. And I'm just like,
Eze gets caught. He says it pre-decided.
And if Eze gets caught in playing 70, 75 minutes, then you lose the appeal of how good he could be because they're going to manage his minutes with Champions League and Cups and stuff. So I'm a bit annoyed at that one. Onions has an interesting point. Do you need Bruno? Yes. Bruno, we said it in pre-season. I'm at the point where I want 90-minute men. I want a team of 90-minute men, and I don't want to think about my options. Same thing here. Do we like Thiago? No. I don't like Dango from just purely based off of his attacking. It's the combination of he gets the clean sheet point, he gets the defensive contribution 2 points, and he gets goals is the only reason why Dango sits in this team currently. I'm not a huge fan of that pick, but that's one pick that's purely based off the data. Where the other 14 players are in my team because I love them as solitary individual picks. Dango at 6 million is purely in there as a price point. And at that price point, he is the clear number one option at 6 mil. And I feel like every time I consider taking him out, the combination of players looks worse of that I'm bringing in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So I'm kind of like, it's interesting because I've never been this set so early on a team, but I don't know. You talk about moving Gyökeres to Mateta. Where does 1.5 million in this team get you? Because you're keeping Semenyo, you're keeping Bruno. You can't then go up to Isak yet either. Like it's awkward. Like I feel like every move now in this team is awkward.
I think the only other thing that you can do looking at this is move Dango to a 5.5. Let's say Anderson, because I think he'd be great under Ant. Right. Yep. And then you could maybe move the like of a Porro, because he's probably the 5.5 you would move. And you can get to another 6 million asset defender, and you would probably move to a Liverpool one to cover that off, right? It's like
it'd be Verge if I was going 6 mil.
And I think if that to me sounds a lot better than going for Dango. But I really like the exploration of the data-driven pick, and I think it can go really well with Dango. By the way, all these questions, team, is for good chat. I really like Paul's structure, and it has to be said.
Can you answer that one, Damo, too?
About Paqueta. Look, I don't know about Paqueta, but Bruno's numbers are insane, and he's the most creative guy in the league at the moment, basically from the table we showed earlier. And there was we had 5 returns in the last game, and he only got 1. I'm still a bit annoyed captaining him. But yeah, look, Bruno has been second to none. He gets great DC out of by halftime. He's probably going to get DC at by halftime here against City, and he's pulling all the strings to this slightly deeper role for United. Paqueta, as much as I do like him as a footballer, we need to see it. We need to see he's out of that level, because I think Paqueta goes in the same book as a Yuri Tielemans or insert Harvey Elliott could be the same as Paqueta as well. But Paqueta's XG and XA is okay, but we need to see it.
Yeah, it's the 0.22 XA versus 0.58, and then the 1.88 versus the 1.18 is probably the fact that Bruno's had the second penalty as well. So Paqueta's doubled the shots on target for Bruno, but Bruno's had 8 shots to Paqueta's 5. Paqueta's scored twice as well. But the goal against Chelsea was like a 0.01 XG chance as well. So, you're not really looking at that. So
it's the key passes for me, is that Bruno is the one that is creating the big chance for United. I know they're all on 0 and Enzo's on 1. I'd be very keen to understand what Hub thinks is a key chance, because in terms of against Arsenal, I think he created 3, and I think in the last fixture that they played and Bruno was captain and got me 20 points total. I can't remember who they played last 2 weeks ago.
I think big chance created is a pass that leads to a shot on target.
Yeah, that happened I can tell you right now, he would play the big pass to Mbeumo, who probably should have scored, and he hit it.
Yeah, but didn't he put it wide though?
Pardon?
Didn't Mbeumo put it wide?
No, keeper saved it. It was on target.
I thought he missed it left to the post.
Nah, I'm pretty sure it was a keeper save. But yeah, look, Bruno, I think, has created quite a number of big chances this season. What I'm saying, I know like the Diallo one wasn't considered a big chance, but if anything on target, that's a goal as well. Yeah, I think Bruno is much better player than Paqueta, has much better quality, and I think that Bruno is that good with DEFCON that he's probably going to get around 200 points.
So this is an interesting point here from Superposition. Never beat 100 points, even if you think DEFCON are going to be massive, the total scores won't be huge. My counter argument is if every single one of your midfielder gets an assist and every single one of your defender gets DEFCON, you're going to get more DEFCON points. Simple.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, because you're going to get a clean sheet potentially. That's you're relying on the DEFCON with the clean sheet is what you need. DEFCON alone, obviously, at 2 points is less likely, but you're more likely for a defender to get 10 contributions than a Semenyo to get an assist over time. And that's the game you're playing. In any given one game week, I can understand this point because, in a one-off game week where all your attackers get returns, fair enough. But if you're playing FPL with your back five locked in for the whole season and you're then committed to those defenders that have high potential to get DC, the fact that they get DC and then a clean sheet, then they're likely to get bonus. That's how Tarkovsky gets the big hauls of 8 points. So you're saying you wouldn't take consistent 8-point hauls from a Tarkovsky at 5.5 million, but Dewsbury Hall's going to get a 12-pointer one every 5 weeks. But Tarkovsky could go and get 8-pointers 3 times in 5 weeks. That's the interesting point. So, you were referring to Paqueta.
Yeah, fair point then.
I don't really get it then. Oh, never beat 100 points. Oh, you're saying that Paqueta never got 100. Got you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paqueta, look, he's got injury problems too. So I don't think Paqueta's body's going to be able to withstand playing 90 minutes every week too. So that's another one. Damo, I think this was potentially the comment that was on our YouTube channel.
I think it was. Thanks, K7, for first commenting on the video that went out a couple of hours ago. And yes, after this has gone live and you guys have been absolutely sensational in the chat today, feel free to go check that video out that I released about my game week 3, game week 4. I talked a lot about Watkins in that video, to be fair, as well. But I have Cunha plus JSL flagged, and I've got 1 free transfer, 0 in the money. The rest of my team is Sanchez, Tarkovsky, Porro, Murillo, Anderson, Estevez, Salah, Wirtz, Reinders, Watkins, and Mateta. What do you do?
Wildcard. Just wildcard, bro.
Yeah, Cunha and Saab both aren't playing, for sure.
Strand Larson, 50.
He should be back now that the transfer hasn't gone through.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that was more an injury to protect him from the transfer rumors that were going on. So I think he plays. And then the rest of the team, as it was on there, thanks again, Paul. Murillo.
I think the rest of it's fine.
Yeah. Look, I think Murillo and Anderson, you could play both of them against Arsenal. They're probably going to get
not
DC,
ideal,
both of them, but it's not great. I wouldn't go wasting the wild card because you've got Watkins, who has great fixtures. You've got Mateta, who's got really good fixtures. You've got Strand Larson, who looks good. Reinders is fine. Wirtz is fine. Sutherland's fine. They both played Burnley. I would say bench Cunha and Sarr. Transfer one of them out actually this week and transfer one out next week, probably as well.
Probably Sarr goes first.
Cunha goes first, I think. Or maybe not.
Why? No, Sarr's hamstring's going to be a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sarr goes. Don't mess with him.
But yeah. Anyhow, you make your 1 free transfer. You play Murillo and Anderson this week with DC, and it's going to be okay. And then, yeah.
I wonder what Anderson that is, if that's midfield Anderson. How many defenders has he got? He's got Tarkovsky, Porro, Murillo. That's Anderson from Fulham.
That's Anderson, yeah.
That's fine then too.
Yeah, that's even better. So I think that's fine. I'm fine with that. Now, guys, please get your comments in. We've got a little bit of time left to answer all your questions ahead of game week 4. We have been going for a while. Matt, I don't think you're a Bruno person, and I don't think us talking about it for 5 minutes on this podcast is what's going to change your mind on that one. If you don't fully believe that Bruno has penalties, goals, assists, DC, and gets the clean sheet point, doesn't matter about the fixture. He is the number 1 player at Man United. They've got too many injuries at the moment. He's going back in the 10 short term, but, barring the penalty, if he scores the penalty against Fulham and has 2 penalty conversions, he has 2, 10 to 12 pointers. He's got DC in both those games as well. I just think that needs to be considered at 9 million, and I'm very, very much going to be holding Bruno all season long, and he can just keep ticking over between 2 and 10 points for me every week. Interesting point here from Onions. Douglas Luiz scored 140 to 150 points before DEFCON when he was at Villa. Again, he was on penalties that season when they really pushed on for Champions League the first time. I think you'd want to see it first, which is perfect there from superposition. As I was talking about it, you'd want to see him nailed in first. Like if Sangare comes out and it's Anderson and Douglas Luiz, then you could go there. But I don't think that defense. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen under Ange from a defensive perspective. I think Luiz and Anderson are going to be fine. I actually think it makes Anderson a better DC player because you'd expect Forest to win the ball higher up the pitch. So I think it makes Milenkovic, Murillo, and Nico Williams worse DC options because they're not going to be inviting so much of that ball into the box. But I think it makes the midfielders better DC options. Damo, what are your thoughts?
I agree. I think Anderson's going to be fantastic. I also will say with Luiz, a lot of his points that season came from the penalty box, from the penalty spot, sorry. And I don't see a world where Wood gets taken penalties off him. But I do see a world where Wood down the track doesn't start because I don't think he's Ange's type of striker. And that young Greek striker that I had might become the number 9 moving forward. If that happens and Luiz is nailed, he may get penalties then. And then all of a sudden we're looking at a really good option. So I think it's one to park in the back of your mind, put on the watch list, and in 6 to 8, 10 weeks' time when you know, then maybe think about it.
What Greek striker are you talking about?
Don't they have a young Greek striker at Forest? He came off the bench, hit the bar, the post last game week.
Brighton. There's 2 Greeks.
Who hit the post then for
They've
Forest?
got 2 from Brighton. They got not Igor Thiago. They got another Thiago from Botafogo that was at the club.
That's who I'm thinking of, Brazilian then.
Igor Jesus, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, not Greek. As much as I'd
like anyhow, I think that was a long-term plan for him to come in for Wood anyway, and I think Ange will just fast track
do it
personally.
Because Wood was Nuno's boy, so I think that's what that'll be. I'm saying no to this. -4 Murillo to Munoz. It's frustrating that you get Sunderland, but then Forest then get Burnley and West Ham the next 2. So I think you just hold Murillo unless you're going to do what I did in wildcard. That's how I got rid of Murillo. So I don't think you need a wildcard as much as I do. I think our teams are quite similar anyway. But I just wasn't happy with the structure of my defense, where your defense is a little bit better structured with Tarkowski and Anderson from Fulham. So I would not be doing that. Onions, I've seen you post that a couple times. Thoughts on Wirtz playing left wing for Germany? He just does that anyway. They don't play with a 10. They play 3-4-3. He shifts inside a bit and plays as that left channel 10 and the fullback overlap. So I've got no concerns about Wirtz ever playing left wing. And Jackson Brown, Wirtz, keep or sell. For me, it's a keep until after Everton. If he's struggling up until that point, and then you can just move him down to Jack Grealish or any of the 6.5s to 7.5s. If you don't have Semenyo, you can just go Semenyo. There's plenty of options to go down to. I think you're just going to hold for now. So that's all the questions in the chat so far. Get your last couple chats in because we are going to wrap things up very, very soon. We are up to 8 likes on the stream. If we could finish that off with 10, that would be absolutely fantastic. If you are still here, if you've been here the whole time and you haven't subscribed,
we're there at 10 already.
What?
Yeah,
mine's taking forever to update.
Went up too, so thank you to those 2 that just did it.
Well, there we go. We're at 10 now, so thank you to those that are at 10. I don't know what the YouTube studio is doing tonight because the poll's not actually showing me any results. So if anyone's in the YouTube chat and can tell me the results.
Up in the YouTube at all, Paul. I haven't opened the actual YouTube page.
All right, because YouTube, the studio of YouTube is just shit the bed. So there's some error there. Duplicate stream key. Select the new. All right, I don't know what the hell is going on there. That's a bit weird.
That's an interesting question that just came through.
Oh, there we go. Now it's up. Let's have a look. Are you guys saying Anderson for Nottingham Forest is a good SAR replacement?
There's so many other options.
Not really at 6.5. Where you going, Dom?
Grealish had a price rise.
He's 6'7".
6'7".
I know who I would go to.
What are you thinking, Damo?
NDI. Grealish historically, a lot of his assists hit that back stick, right? And he's the winger on the other side, so he's got to profit the most, and he's on pens. I actually think NDI might be the better option over Grealish anyhow. But I really do like Grealish, and he passes the eye test. And if you're playing for fun, I would have Grealish too. But yeah, that 0.2 really hurts.
Yeah, that's not ideal. I think Anderson's still going to be a fine pick. I'm not
I think so too.
concerned about him. I think like it's frustrating that he's missed the DC a few times because that does, if he had a few DC points sitting there, then you'd be laughing. But it is what it is. I don't know. From Saar, it's hard. I'd rather go up. Like if you've got multiple transfers, but I don't think you do.
Yeah, he's only got the one.
Yeah, I don't.
Would say don't try to solve it all in the same game week 7. Pick the one you want to do the most. And by the sounds of the questions, the one that sounds like you want to do the most is Murillo to Munoz, and that's probably then the one that you will end up on come the transfer deadline. This is the hardest part of fantasy, is when you want to make all these moves, but you only got one move that you want to, you don't want to knee jerk into a wild card. I'm not saying Paul's knee jerk. Paul had structure issues. This is the hardest part of chasing rank and getting a good rank, is to know what move to make and to avoid the hits where possible. So out of all the questions you've asked, which one excites you the most? And by the sounds of the questions, the one that was the most exciting was Murillo to Munoz. So yeah.
It's definitely interesting. All right, chip strategy time. FPL Onions quickly. So he's on bench boost 15, free hit 16, wildcard 17. So getting in real late. I'm on wildcard 4, which obviously is now. It's the whole point of the whole point of the stream. Practically is talking about my bloody wildcard. And then I don't really know at this point. I'll bench boost whatever week my bench looks good, and I'm happy to bench boost. And free hit might still be 6, but again, I've got Haaland already. But I might want Triple City for Burnley and go from there.
I think for you, Paul, because you're just wild card, you'll end up not needing to free hit in 6. I personally don't think.
I think I'll be able to hold on and pick a week where Salah's going to go off against like a Leeds or something and triple up on Liverpool.
I'm pretty set on what my chip strategy is, depending on injuries and anything else that may happen beforehand. I'm set with Salah, and it's going to be a free hit 6 for Haaland. I've already drawn up my free hit draft, put it that way. So that's happening in 6. My bench boost looks great in 8, and that's because I have the Dubravka and Esteve, and I believe that they play Leeds in that week in game week 8. And I have Diouf, who can, in any fixture, can pop off with an assist or a goal. So happy to play him off the bench in any of it. And then whoever my third choice one is either going to have pretty good DC or not. And then in terms of wild card, I'm pretty set on game week 13. And that wild card is likely to have Haaland and Salah as a 2-week punt before selling Salah in game week 15/16 when the 5 transfers come through for African Cup of Nations. And then I'll go to a Haaland only draft from there. I think the only other one is triple captain. I have toyed with the idea of triple captain this week for Salah against Burnley away, but I'm not set on that, and I don't think I will. I think I'll pick a fixture where a player in form is going to be my captain naturally, which will probably likely be Haaland or Salah, and it'll be a home fixture.
Game week 6 for me.
Week 6. Yeah.
Yeah. Where everyone's free hitting, I'll have triple captain. So when everyone's zigging, I'm zagging. And that's Haaland at home to Burnley. That'll be my triple captain.
Yeah.
Quick hat trick and get off. For 7, Saar's the one. Look, I think if Glasner comes out and says it's not that bad, I think you just hold him with your bench because the options around him aren't great. I love him. At some point, he'll be back in my team. I love Ismaila Sarr. He hurt me last year, but I am a very big Ismaila Sarr fan. So on that note, that is where we are going to wrap things up for tonight. We have just ticked over to 104 subscribers. There are still 12 people in the chat as well. So if you haven't already, make sure you smash a thumbs up on this video. We're at 12 likes on the stream, which matches our one from last week. So let's get it up to at least 13 so we can beat last week's because we had so many people. Matt's just put his wildcard draft in. So let's have a quick comment on it. We'll go through it quickly because we're still here. So he's gone with Petrovic, Porro, Munoz, Senesi, Goodmanson, Ekdal. Who the hell is Ekdal? Semenyo, Salah, Bruno, Dewsbury Hall, and King. Haaland, Mateta, Stren Larson. My concern there is you've got 2 dead spots in King and Ekdal. and Goodmanson. So you've got that's real cheap on the bench. I don't think you can run a wild card now with 3 dead spots on the bench. What are your thoughts, Damo?
I think it's a little bit too dead
Gonna
on the
work.
bench as well. I think a Haaland and Salah draft is not bad, but if you're going Haaland and Salah, as much as I love Bruno, you can't then go Bruno either. You're going to have to spend that money, Bruno downgrading to like, you know, and Grealish or, you know, a cheaper midfielder, because that will allow you to improve those bench spots for when you are looking to bench boost, etc. I think with what, if Matt's played his bench boost, I could get behind this a little more. And what I would say is King is playing 90 minutes, as he's mentioned,
he's
but
not.
I don't think you
No,
want
he's
to be
not.
having King
No, he's not.
starting.
No, he's
I don't
not.
think-
He's played 76, 70, and 66.
I don't think you want to have King starting in your 11 every week as well. Well, obviously he's getting
He's
these
not
minutes
playing
and-
90. There is no way you're picking him at 4.4 million. I can't
I would
have
rather
that.
just downgrade
I
Bruno.
can't
if you
have
want to
that.
go with
There's
it.
Josh King. 66, 70, 76. With that numbers, no, you can't do it. You just
Could have
cannot
a
do
pen
it.
against Chelsea though.
I don't care. I know he got rubbed
Yeah,
off
I'm
a
not going
chance
there at
against
all. I think
Chelsea,
it's
but you
not a great
cannot
pick,
do
but
it.
yeah.
There's another comment here about the light bench. This is the way, like, look, I play FPL very differently. I can live with leaving points on my bench, but knowing that I play the right fixture. And if someone pops off in a hard fixture, then so be it. But I'm going to give myself the best chance to be ahead, because once you play that wild card, there's no going back, and there's no you're not taking hits. You're not, because you just start going down a negative spiral. You need depth. And this is a season where there's going to be suspensions. There's going to be red cards. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be other things that pop up. There's European football. There's going to be so many things going on. You need a squad. I don't mind having one burner spot, but not 3. I don't think you can have 3, 4, and 4.5 million assets in your sides. It's just something that, for me, is just a non-negotiable. And that's where I'm at. So, like, I don't want to be relying on Dewsbury Hall. This is the thing. So, just rotating with Dewsbury Hall, I would never be starting King. He's not Andreas Pereira, who was a 4.5 million on set pieces, played 90 minutes and on pens. This is a guy that's playing 70 minutes if he's lucky in a worse Fulham attack. So, I would not be backing Josh King to be anything like that. And 4.5s, keep him for your defenders. They are the most valuable 4.5 million assets you can find. Try and find a way to spread that money around, and that's definitely not having Haaland and Salah. The value of having a Haaland and a Salah is they're your captain. There's no point having both of them, and if you're not going to captain one of them. So I'm a bit on that train. But hour and 20 in, that's where we're going to leave it. Thank you to everybody that has been here tonight. It's been absolutely massive. Some of the numbers we've pulled through tonight has been massive. I'm very, very keen to see what the analytics show, because at some points we were up over 20 viewers, which for us is a big, big achievement. We are here every single Tuesday night. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you put the notifications on, because one, it helps us in growing the channel, but it also helps us in supporting you guys, knowing that you're enjoying the content. Thank you to everybody that was in the chat. Matt, Superposition, FPL Onion in particular, Jackson, you guys have been popping off in the chat tonight. That all helps us out massively as well. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you check us out over on Twitter, X, and on Instagram, and on TikTok. We are on all the big platforms at the moment putting content out. There will be some more shorts from me going out. Damo's already got a video that's gone out today as well. So make sure you go and look at his team review, because we didn't look at his team tonight intentionally, because he's done an in-depth video on the channel. So if you want to see Damo's team and his thoughts, make sure you go and check that video out. Make sure you smash a like on the stream as you leave. Make sure you subscribe as well. And we'll see you guys next Tuesday for our Game Week 4 review.